Hi, folks. Welcome into Flourish FM and this special series on anti-fragility. Really excited about the conversation we're bringing you today. I sat down and chatted with my good friend, Donene Taylor, who's just an absolute rock star. Donine is a WPRA world champion. In 2016, she won the world championships in tie-down calf roping. That's right. She's a true blue American cowgirl and an awesome one at that. But she's also a certified mental performance coach. She's a speaker. She's a two-time best-selling author of a book, Heart of a Champion, which is essentially a memoir and a story of her sort of, let's say, difficulties and challenges throughout childhood and adulthood and womanhood, and eventually, of course, the culmination in her world championship. And then Mastering the Art of Winning, which is really a guidebook, a how-to book for a lot of the things that she teaches and coaches her clients to do. Had an awesome conversation about anti-fragility. She's a living, breathing example of it. She's also a mother of two young men now. We talk about how anti-fragility played a role, not just in her life, but in her parenting and competing as well. Really awesome conversation filled with a lot of insight. And so here it is, Donene Taylor.
Hey.
Hey there, Coach.
How are
we
you?
doing? It's great to see you.
Yeah. Great to see you. Made my day knowing I was going to see you today.
Oh, me
Yeah.
too. Me too.
Yeah,
This is going to be fun.
yeah.
Looking forward to it. Okay, Donine, I'm pumped to be doing this with you. I know you're excited as well. This is going to be fun.
Me too.
I want to start kind of right on the nose here. What we mean by and how you think about anti-fragility. And the reason I want to do that, we're going to get into, I think, some of your story and personal history and kind of why it resonates for you. But I just want to start with, I think, your excitement around this concept, because when I first started talking about it, and to be transparent for our listeners, you're a member of our advisory board, right? You're a supporter of the work we're doing. You're a big believer in this concept. So let's start with, what do you think it means and why does it have you so juiced?
Well, what it means for me is being able to bounce back up. Obstacles make me stronger. Struggles make me stronger. Challenges make me stronger. Failures make me stronger. That's what it means for me. It means taking those things and, I like to say I'm an alchemist, taking those things and then using them as fuel, using all of that stuff as fuel to move me forward, to help me grow, to help me get outside my comfort zone, to keep moving forward. And I know your academia, that's not in the dictionary, but I mean, that's what it means for me.
That is what it
and
means.
For me,
that's the essence. Yeah.
Oh,
Forget
okay.
academia. Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head. Right.
But for me, it's more knowing what it looks like for me, like inside, like when I'm present, man, that sets me up to be anti-fragile. When I'm positive, when I'm productive, when I'm focused on process, persistent. I mean, when I see myself doing those things, being those things, I know I'm in that realm of working towards being anti-fragile.
It's interesting that you added that part on at the end, because I think sometimes people hear the word anti-fragile and you think about the half a dozen ways you described it right on the onset, which I think are perfect. Those sound like, or close to, tough it out, suck it up, be non-fragile, right? And I want to push back against this, because I know that's not what you mean. I know that's not what we mean either, and that there's actually some room in between. And I think your answer speaks to it, because right away you talked about, I know how I'm feeling internally. I know how I'm thinking internally. Mindset, optimism, positivity, those sorts of things. It doesn't sound like for you it means this grit and bear unpleasantness all the time sort of lifestyle or existence.
No, it's being vulnerable, transparent, courageous, brave, bold, living on the edge, not knowing what's coming, like really like it could go either way, but you keep taking the next step forward. I mean, that's what anti-fragile is, what it looks like for me, feels like for me. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Where does and you can already feel this, so I was so excited to talk to you, can already feel your, I think, enthusiasm and just passion around this. Where do you
Heck
think
yeah.
that comes from for this, this sort of idea and concept and application?
Yeah, because I wasn't for so long. I
Mm,
wasn't for so long. I mean, you read my book, Heart of a Champion, and my family wasn't that. I wasn't that. I mean, my family, a lot of blame, complain, being defensive, making excuses. When things got hard, you back down, you don't ask for help, very negative. I mean, just the opposite of what anti-fragile is for me. And, I did it their way for a really long time. And what I found was I did a lot of start, stop, and start, stopping. I did a lot of riding the insanity loop, doing the same thing over and over and over again, thinking
mm.
it's going to get better. And and
What were
that
some
did
of those
not work
things?
for me.
What were some of those loops that you eventually needed to break?
Oh, shucks. Okay. Well, when I didn't win, when I didn't get the results I wanted, when things got a little sideways. I mean, all of those things, I'm thinking the world's out to get me. Poor pitiful me. Why me? I can't believe this stuff's happening again. I can't believe she's winning. I can't believe he's winning.
Mm,
That they don't want it as bad as I want, but I want it. And it would stall me out. I'd get stuck. I would stop. I would quit. And I thought that was okay. But I really had that all-consuming desire, burning desire in my heart, in my being. I mean, that gosh, I really want to run down this goal. And it was that goal that really kept me hooked, kept me locked in. And I went to that bull riding school with my oldest son, Hunter. My kid's in high school. He wants to ride bulls, and I know Lyle Sankey. I know he's a great coach. I know it's going to be safe. I know as safe as bull riding can be.
sure.
But
Yeah.
you
Right.
know, but he's going to have the right equipment. He's going to have different level bulls. He's going to show them shoot procedure and all the things. And he gets all those guys sitting in the bleachers, 8 o'clock in the morning, the first day. And I'm sitting on the side, Doc, and I got my notebook, my pen. I'm gonna take notes because I know my
Yeah.
kid, he ain't gonna write nothing down. He ain't gonna take notes. And so I'm writing every down verbatim. I mean, he's showing him how to tie a knot in the rope. He's showing him how to do things. I'm drawing it. I'm kid drawing it the best I can. And then he asked all the guys. They were all guys. Not that girls don't go to those, but they was all guys on that day.
Yeah. Okay.
And like, does anybody here know the definition of insanity? And none of the guys raised their hand. This is like 2011. Now pretty common. Most,
Yeah.
that's kind of a buzzword a lot now. But 2011, it wasn't, not in my circles. And those guys, none of those guys knew. And there's probably 30 guys there. And and nobody answered. And I'm writing down definition of insanity. And then Lyle, Mr. Sankey says the definition is doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting different results. And I'm writing it down. And I just have that huge light bulb, that aha moment. I mean, the dots connected. I'm like, that's me. That's me. And that was 5 years prior to me running down, my goal of wanting to become a world champion. And that truly was a turning point for me. When I had the awareness, wow,
Yeah.
wow, I need to do things. I I want to do things differently. And that was the catalyst for me to really spur me on, because it looked so bad. And I mean, before that, I mean, Doc, I mean, eating disordered, OCD, went to rehab twice because I'm no quitter. And
Hmm.
and then coming back and still just being scared to death what's on the other side of struggle and failure and challenge and adversity. Just being scared of what's on the other side of it, like thinking I can't go there.
Tell me more about it because you've listened for our listeners. We've known each other for I think a few years now. We've had I think
Oh
similar
yeah.
conversations. I've read the book. I love the book. I think everybody should read it. I hope it turns into a big, awesome, badass movie. But tell me, like, when you say things like that, it puzzles me a little bit because, like, as an outsider, I sit there, I look at you, and I think, well, you everything you just listed off, like
Hmm.
you conquered and you overcame, and we'll get into it a little bit more. I think it's probably laced with real trauma, and some post-traumatic growth at the same time, right? And you're really good about pulling both those things out. But we'll get to that. I guess, like, at the moment, why do you think you continued to maybe sort of look at that and fear or doubt or sort of what was on the other side?
Well, that's what was modeled for me.
Mm, mm.
I grew up with that. It was modeled for me.
How so?
Um, with my parents. With my parents. I mean, it's it take the safe road,
Mm,
scared to do anything different, scared of what other people
mm,
might think, really consumed with the results, consumed with what it looked like from the outside. What will other people think? What will other people do? Be a
mm,
good girl. Shame on you. Um, no, no, good girls don't do this. Don't embarrass me.
mm.
I mean, you get told that type of thing, you're not really a big risk taker. You live pretty
Rigid,
much on
pessimistic, fearful.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, very, very, very fearful, you know. Yeah, I mean, very stay within the family. I mean, when I, learned to ask for help, that was that was huge. I mean, that was scary. Gosh, you mean I can ask for help? I can go work with someone. I don't need to grind it out on my own. Like, ask for
Mm.
help. Nobody's going to love you as much as your family. Nobody's going to help you except your family. I mean, it was an enmeshment, you know.
You think that's a big part of anti-fragility, support structures, systems, communities?
Yeah, yeah, I call it the elite inner circle,
Yeah.
who you have in your circle, your community. And my inner circle's not very big. It's not very big, I get, compared to what some folks may have. I mean, um, it's incredibly important to build that inner circle and to invest in yourself. I mean, I got a lot invested with a lot of different coaches. I mean, money, time, energy, effort. I mean, you were a big part. You are a big part of in my inner circle. I mean,
I
that's
appreciate that.
huge. Well,
Well,
I
it's
appreciate you.
and it's interesting you bring that up because when I asked it, I was really in some ways, I guess, thinking most immediately family, friends, those sorts of things. But you brought us to a really good place there as well in terms of like your attitude and so far let's just highlight we've heard some me skills like self-talk and the story you tell yourself and the perception and the mindset, right? But now you're also bringing up
Mhm,
some we pieces, so relationships, certainly we can
mhm.
get into family or friends, but again you brought us to I think a really nice place, which is you can also thoughtfully strategically surround yourself with people who can, I think, accelerate your ability to live more in a more anti-fragile way.
Yeah, I started seeking out people who had what I wanted.
Mm,
Like after like getting off the insanity loop. I mean, like, okay, how am I going to do that?
yeah,
How,
right.
that's a
So where did you
cool.
start?
That's
Yeah, where
cool.
did you start? That's the question, right? How do I do this? Cool, I want to change. Where do I begin? Where did you start?
Yeah. Yeah. I started with the decision.
Yep.
I started with a decision. Hey, I want to get off the insanity loop. I mean, I'm going to commit to it. And so I wrote myself out a contract with myself. And it was a recommitment, commit to your commitment, keep committing to your commitment. I mean, it wasn't like I signed the contract and then put it in the folder. I mean, I was going to stay committed to this to this goal that I wanted to run down. And big part of that was to get off the insanity loop. So I was committed to it. And I made the decision that that's what I was going to do. I was kind of, it was a line in the sand
Yeah. Yeah.
type of moment, like step across it, like, hey, that's who I was, but this is who I am now. And no matter what, like sacred, like no
Right.
matter what, I ain't going back to the way I was doing things.
Yeah. And so who you want
And
to be now or who you want to become, you look out, you start reading, learning, investigating, whatever, and you're starting to see people, coaches, experts who, as you just put it, kind of have some of what you want, either to learn or live or apply or maybe all of that.
yeah, I mean, and I start off like going in the barn. I mean, you've been in my barn, like listening to YouTube things while I'm doing my horse things out there, like listening to Les Brown, listening to real old school, like Earl Nightingale, listening, to Napoleon Hill, listening, Brene Brown, listening to them, thinking
Yeah.
like, man, I don't know. That's what I want. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but that's what I want. And I started hanging up, you've been in my barn, all those signs of success. I mean, it's like a tile, like a total immersion
It
learning
really is.
experience.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
Okay, that was huge. And I was doing all this pretty instinctively, just follow intuitively, like following my gut. Like I need positivity. I need to surround myself with this. I need to get addicted to it.
Right.
And the signs of success, I really started to work on how I was gonna, really choose the words that I was gonna speak. Really be mindful of that because words are so powerful. I really got turned on to that. Perspective, how I was gonna frame things. I really got turned on about that. It wasn't it that the world wasn't happening to me. I mean, I started like the world's happening for me. It's not why me, it's like why not me? Learning that, Troy Pruitt's one of the coaches I've worked with for, gosh, I mean, coming on 30 years. I've known him and his family. And
Okay.
and one day it wasn't the best training session at his barn. And I'm sure he saw it in my face. And he's like, Donine, there's winners and there's learners. And he's like, right here, we learned a lot today. And I mean, that blew me back. Like, wow, winners and losers. That's what I would have said. And he's saying winners and learners. And it started to become so much more than the winning. But gosh, what are the steps I need to take? How can I learn? How can I bounce back? How can I rally back?
Feedback,
What's my next
growth,
step?
long-term process.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, going to his place, I was like, man, I don't know why he keeps letting me come back because I'm a fit thrower, I'd cuss, and he's just so laid back and just like looking for the positive and I'm like, man, I don't understand what's in his water. Like, I don't know what he's drinking because I don't see it like that. And then as I figured my things out, I'm like, well, hell, he's got a growth mindset. And that was so weird to
Started putting a
me.
language to it. Yeah. Started labeling
Oh
it.
my
Yeah.
gosh. Yeah, he's growth mindset. I'm fixed. I'm like, if I can't do it today, I just can't do it. This is it. It's all or nothing. And that just he really grew me a lot
So you
and still
started getting
does.
models on the other side too. Like you mentioned having things modeled for you at one point or throughout, kind of multiple periods of your life. Eventually these other models start kind of taking their places within your life as well, in different ways, shapes, and forms. And that helps kind of nudge some of these changes as well. Like you can see it. That, like you said earlier, I like the way you phrased it. I want that. I want what they have, right? And then you start adding language and learning to it as well. It sounds like underscoring it with what you're watching, reading, listening to.
Yeah, it was a build. It wasn't like waking
Yeah.
up one day and I'm anti-fragile.
Right.
It wasn't that at all. And I really don't think I was fragile. I think I think
Mm-mm.
I was more resilient. More
Mm-hmm.
resilient. Like I could get beat up and knocked down and and I would keep bouncing, but eventually,
Yep.
man, I lay out for the count. Just lay out for the count. and then I would come back eventually.
And
But then
it should
my
be
progress,
said. Yeah, well, I'm sorry to cut you off, but it should be said
no,
that alone is wildly admirable. When you
well, I,
consider any, well, of course, but you consider anything difficult in life, but certainly, and you gave us sort of the short list, if you will, earlier of some really intense, traumatic, difficult things that you've gone through. Anyone who can come through that at all, let alone bounce back to sort of baseline, if you will, is, I think, an unbelievable story. I think all you're doing is saying where the real change and switch happened that kind of help maybe navigate or prevent or stop you from kind of going back into some of those spaces is where maybe you would distinguish resilience from anti-fragility.
mm-hmm, yeah, I would say, yeah. I mean,
Correct
yeah,
me. Correct
yeah,
me. You're thinking
yeah.
something else.
No, no, no. I think. Well, I appreciate you telling me I done good. Getting baseline. And the thing is, that didn't happen all by itself either. I mean,
Sure.
after my first child was born, I mean, he's like 3 months old, and I realized, man, I am deep into this eating disorder and OCD, and so was my mom, and I'm like, man, I'm going to do better. I mean, I'm just going to do better. And I mean, Hunter, he sparked me to go get some help, and I remember leaving Julie's office. I write about her in the book. I remember leaving her office the first time, and I was mad. I was so mad at her, all the things she said, that my family was, not just, that's not healthy, that's not normal, that's, and I'm that's all I had ever known.
Hmm.
Here I'm thinking it's all me, like I just need to figure my stuff out.
Yeah.
And she was helping me unpack it, but I kept going back. And heck, I saw her last Wednesday. I have things going on. I mean, I still go and sit down on her couch, and
Hmm.
we unpack it and work it out. And I kept going back. I mean, I guess I don't know. I mean, what is, most people would have got mad and not went back, Doc. I kept going back for 30 years. And
Why do you think you kept going back? I mean, you mentioned Hunter as a spark, and maybe that's it. Maybe it was just, hey, I'm a mom. I want to work on these things. I want to do it for my kid, and that did it. My guess is there's probably more to it, but what kept you going? Because what's interesting, I think,
well,
Donine, is like, so you mentioned, yes, you listened to the talk, you took the notes, you want to get off the insanity train, and that was like a line of demarcation. But it also sounds like the one you're describing right now with Hunter was sort of a line of demarcation as well, and meeting Julie and going down that path. And I guess I'm wondering, what led to that?
well, I didn't want to be my mom.
Hmm.
I mean, I didn't. I wanted to break the cycle. I don't think, I mean, I did. I mean, I didn't want to be my mom. I just didn't want to be my mom. I wanted to do better.
Hmm.
I didn't, I did. I wanted to do better.
And that fueled the resilience, you think, the
To
persistence,
keep going.
the
Yeah, to
grit.
keep showing up, keep doing the work, going to rehab twice. And I mean, the goal, going to rehab, I think, wanting to win the world. I mean, that fueled me to get my things figured out, in rehab. I mean, I wanted more. And to have more, you must become more. And I just, and a lot of this, Doc, I mean, it was intuitive or instinctive. I mean, I'm just shooting from the hip.
Hmm.
I'm just, I'm just doing stuff. I'm not sitting idle. And my
What do you
husband,
think?
I love him. I love my husband. I mean, Stan, I had a lot to live for, but it was to the point where I wasn't. I 80 pounds, less than 80 pounds. I mean, I wasn't going to make it.
Hmm.
It was a choice. It was a decision.
I'm pausing,
What do you think?
pausing. No, I'm pausing here because I want to, I think I want to try to unpack
Okay.
that decision a bit more.
Okay.
And granted, and you might sit and say, "Hey, Doc, there's not much more to unpack." I told you, right? Stan, Hunter, there's love, there's, I don't know what
The
emotion you might
goal.
put on it. There's the goal, right? There's some, that's okay, some ego, little pride in there, right? Little esteem. Yep,
Yeah.
it
Yeah. At
sounds
that point,
healthily.
it was, yeah, at that point, it was ego. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there,
Yeah.
I'm curious, with the comment about your mom, is that fear? Is that disdain? Is that anger?
All the above.
All of it.
It
Yeah.
was complicated. My
Yeah.
daughter relate very complicated. Daughter, dad, complicated. It all was very complicated. I mean, it just was very complicated. And the last 6 weeks of her life not probably was the best 6 weeks we ever had.
Hmm.
And
Why is that?
it really was. Well, we kind of we took off our masks.
Hmm.
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
she shared different things. um I certainly didn't. I just let her share what she wanted to share. I didn't dig, I didn't pry. I mean, at one point she says, man, if I could do it all over again, I would do it so much differently. And I'm sitting there next to her bed. I'm thinking, man, she's got regret. She's got regret. And I certainly wouldn't want to have that be one of the last conversations I had with my kids.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
mean, they have regret, and she's having regret. She knows she's gonna die. Um, but yeah, I mean, it was very complicated, and I knew that, as I'm learning that it's not healthy, as I'm understanding it, as I'm getting it unpacked, and I'm doing the unpacking, I'm doing the work. Counseling's work, rehab's work. I'm figuring it out. Like, wow, like this is important stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in it to win it. Like, this is important stuff. But I just the very first, one or two, I'm like I was even like, are we gonna code it? There's so much shame in what I had going on, Doc. I mean, I'm like, are we coding it that? Can you code it something different? Can you, like the ICD-9 codes? Can you code it something different, or do you have to code it eating disorder? Like, she's like, I need to code it what it is. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
okay. So much shame.
Mm.
Yeah.
What I'm
I
curious
don't
about,
know.
I appreciate you going there with us. Obviously you've written about it extensively and you've talked about it, but I'm sure
Yeah.
it's never easy to go back to those places. Um, and like, as we talk about anti-fragility, you started with that
Mhm.
awesome story that I think was like inspirational, right? Oh, I can learn about growth mindset and I can change myself, but I can build the good, right? Um,
Mhm.
but it also seems like, and I want you to correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like there were a lot of lessons learned or behaviors learned or emotions leveraged that came from, for lack of a better word, the bad. And I guess I'm just wondering how you reflect on that? Do you think about that? Because a lot of what you described is obviously truly awful in so many ways. And it seems like you're pulling out really important lessons or motivating emotions from those experiences at the same time.
Yeah. I really, it was really helpful for me. I mean, this is part of the build for the anti-fragility for me is to gain that emotional regulation. Get off the emotional roller coaster or the emotional results roller coaster. And I mean, that was huge for me to learn how to regulate. And my mom rode that emotional roller coaster, and I rode it right along with her. And you don't need to ride that ride. You don't need to go to that ticket booth and buy that ticket or buy that all you can ride wristband. I mean, you can cut that off. You don't need to ride it. It's a choice. And it's I really started taking the emotion out of it, like being like mad and furious and um angry about it, or just depressed or disappointed, taking the disappointment out of not getting what I wanted and just really putting on the lab coat and like getting curious and interested. Ooh, that's interesting. Hmm. Get sparked. That's motive. I'm going to get motivated. I'm going to work on that.
Mhm.
And that was a big part of how to not ride that ride, spiky like that, to really be like a data collecting fool, just
Yeah.
just an expert data collector. And that was a shift in perspective for me.
Hi, friends. Nick here with just a brief interlude to share with you an update on one of our newest partnerships with the Anti-Fragile Academy. Throughout John and I's conversations with many, if not most, of our guests, one thing has been made really clear. In order for people to flourish, thrive, experience the good life, they need to develop the capacity to not only navigate and endure, but ideally grow from the bad, grow from unpleasant experiences. That's why we're thrilled to be partnering with our newest sponsor, the Anti-Fragile Academy, an organization that I co-founded with Dr. Adam Wright, Director of Mental Performance for the Washington Nationals. At the Anti-Fragile Academy, we work with adolescent athletes, executives, and educators to help them understand some of the science, not just of optimal performance, but of well-being and anti-fragility. The ability not only to endure and bounce back from unpleasantness, but to actually come back stronger, to grow from it. Between Adam and I, we've worked with Fortune 100 companies, Inc. 300 executives, Division I programs, and elite professional athletes and Olympians from all over the world. To find out more about how you can leverage anti-fragility training, check out our website at theantifragileacademy.com. Mark Brackett at the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence, talks about that as being a motion scientist. It's
Oh, I
not
like it.
it's very similar. I think what you're saying, it's not judgmental, it's investigative, right? One,
Very, like, get the
and
flashlight
what,
out.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Get the flashlight out. You said it earlier. It starts with awareness, right? Putting the spotlight on it, putting the flashlight on it, understanding why you're feeling whatever you're feeling, putting some sort of label on it so you know what you're dealing with, and then figuring out how you want to respond, right? Or react in some way, shape, or form. And if you can do that
Well,
enough and get
there's
some control, you can have
yeah.
some level of regulation. I don't know that we ever get to full emotional regulation, but you were going to say.
Well, yeah, but I think you can master it. I really do. I think you can master it. I mean, knowing that I control these buttons, they're going to get hit, but I control them. I control what I do, and it is responsive for me. It's not reactive for me. And I mean, it's having the ball, being on the offense. Like, I got the ball. I'm in control.
Being on the
Looking for
offense.
solutions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, offensive solutions. Hitting my pause button, breathing, being composed, zooming out, getting a new perspective. I mean, learning, like, knowing, hey, like, I'm getting ready to buy that ticket. Like, hey, hit the pause,
Well,
take a breath.
so that's the piece right there, right? What you're describing requires some sort of space or pause between stimulus and response, right?
Oh, yeah.
It,
Yeah, the E plus R equal go.
how do you get that pause? How do you get that space between your stimulus and response? Because everything you're saying makes sense, it
Yeah.
jives, there's lots of good science behind it, and doesn't matter if you can't get that gap to do some of that thinking and reflecting and non-judgmental awareness, right? So how do you create that gap for yourself?
Well, practice and mindfulness,
Practice
you
mindfulness.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah, being practice, having a gratitude practice, having a breathing practice, having a meditation practice,
Hmm.
looking for the opportunities. Where can I push that pause button? How can I get really good at it? Like it
Mm,
takes reps. It
yeah.
takes reps to push the pause button and take a breath and zoom out and see it for what it really is. Stop taking it personally. Controlling the controllables. I mean, all of that is big for mindfulness for me. Um,
So you might seek
and
out having those buttons pressed.
yeah, just
Yeah.
like seeking out getting outside your comfort zone.
Right.
Seek out doing stuff that scares the dickens out of you. Seek out those things, like try it on, get some reps in. I mean, that's what I did when I was like figuring my things out. Is like, okay, I'm an athlete. Let's get some reps in.
Yeah.
Let's get some reps in. And then celebrate everything. Like celebrate the awareness. Like, good job. Good job recognizing like you were about ready to buy that ticket. Good job. Like, even if I didn't like crush it, like good job working the rep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Being my own
100%.
best coach. I got great coaches. I mean, I ain't scared to invest in myself. But when I determined I would and made the decision, it's all decision for me. I'm going to be my own best coach. I really started to catch some momentum,
Yeah.
and it just got catapulted. And it was like I'm just kind of inching along, and then I just caught momentum. And it was like, man, I can't believe I did it any other way.
Yeah.
I can't believe I got on that emotional roller coaster. I can't believe that I ever stopped, quit. I can't believe I did that.
Totally different
But I was doing my
perspective.
best.
Yeah.
I was doing my best.
Yeah. Well, you
I
don't know what you don't know, right? Like you've got to have
know.
these moments of awareness that you've talked about in order for transformation to occur. If you don't know what you even want to transform into, it makes transformation much harder, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't know. I worked it up from rock bottom. I believe. I did. You get to rehab twice. You're kind of. Bottom. I really did want to get better.
Yeah.
I really did. And and I really enjoy it. I enjoyed it. I really did. And I think that was part of the putting on the lab coat and taking, instead of attaching my self-worth to it, like going back to the earlier conversation, like, well, what did it look like growing up? And man, I had my self-worth, love. Maybe my folks would say something different, and but perception. My perception is my reality. I felt like when I won, I was loved more. I felt when I won, I was a winner. And the opposite was true when I didn't win. I felt like, gosh, now I'm gonna have to earn their love back. Gosh, I'm not worthy. My self-worth was really wrapped up into all of it. And then when I put on the lab coat, and like you called the scientist lab coat, my self-worth isn't attached to any of that. I'm learning something. I'm having fun. I'm having joy. I'm going to get better. My self worth isn't attached to any of this. It's what I do. It's my results. Sure in the heck aren't who I am. It's just I enjoy doing this,
Yeah.
and
It,
that allows you to be anti-fragile. what part of the reason, when you can take your self-worth, stop attaching your self-worth.
Yeah. Intrinsic. Yeah. Not extrinsic.
Oh, totally extrinsic growing up. Yeah.
So how
Yeah.
did this, you've kind of laid out so many different, I think, markers throughout childhood and even early kind of competition experience that, can create all sorts of different challenges. You've also laid out a lot of these kind of interesting moments of reflection and transformation. And you said, pretty explicitly a big motivation that led to one of the biggest transformations was just didn't want to be mom, right? Wanted to do
Yeah.
things differently. And so what
Yeah.
I'm curious about is like that just kind of makes me jump to a pondering, right, around something that I see very often in my world, working with
Okay.
parents, coaches, young people, whatever it might be.
Okay.
Most people seem to understand that doing hard shit, right, and seeking discomfort and growing through adversity is a part of life and is really good for their kids to experience. And then they often don't let it happen. Right. And it's not because they're bad parents, because they love their kids and they want to do everything possible for them and make them happy and experience joy and comfort and all those sorts of things. But I'm taking too long of a time to frame this question, but I think you can see where I'm going with this, which is like, I look at you and I imagine you parented with both of those lenses in mind, right? Like, how do I help my kids do hard stuff, take it on? I'm sure Stan was a part of this as well, obviously, but also,
Yeah.
be different and help them have a different existence that's filled with, I'm going to say more, let's say more pleasantness.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, helicopter parents, snowplow
Sure.
parents, is that what we're talking about? Kind of.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I was probably, well, I know, I'm just really honest with myself. I know I was a better parent on, towards like when my kids got older, like in school still, but I believe I was a better parent because I was healthier. I was healthier. And as I became healthier, absolutely,
Put your
letting them,
oxygen mask on first, always, right?
I guess well, wow, yeah, yeah, that's good, Doc. Yeah, yeah, and yeah, and I was working on not dying. You know what I mean? I'm working on
Yep.
surviving,
Yep.
and it was really hard. Parenting was it's harder when you're not healthy. It's harder when you're not healthy. But I was there, and Stan was there, and we did all the things, and we loved them all. We loved them, but it was hard. And once I got healthy, then I could see some and take some action, do the things that would help them, spread their wings. Um, we didn't. I don't believe we. I mean, I'm not saying we didn't ever, because that's not true. But we really worked not to be the snowplow or the helicopter parents.
How would you
And
go
my
about
kids,
that?
how would I go about not doing that?
Yeah,
If
exactly.
you mean,
So in other words,
um,
like there's probably moments where you and Stan were like, yeah, this is going to be unpleasant, uncomfortable, difficult, whatever it might be. But for lack of a better phrase, maybe you let them tread water a little bit and see if they can swim to shore.
yeah, if they got in trouble,
Hmm.
okay, we didn't rush to the rescue.
Hmm.
We didn't say we didn't jump like we know who our kids are. Okay, we didn't jump to the rescue and say our kid would never do
Hmm.
that, or try to finagle things. Like we let it
Accountability.
we let it play out. Yeah,
Yeah.
accountability. Yep, I like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, we didn't rush to the rescue when things we didn't go and try to get them into certain things. They needed to earn that and work towards it. They needed to do the work. Um, Roper, my youngest. He's in the Webelos, Boy Scouts.
Okay.
Okay. You know what I'm talking about, Webelos. And what do they sell? They sell popcorn. They sell popcorn. And I mean, a lot of parents, I mean, take those things, throw it out on the table, sign up if you want popcorn, sign up. Or now, back in the day, Doc, we didn't have the Facebook, so there was
Sure.
none of that.
The
Okay.
actual
Okay. But
catalog. Yep. Sure.
oh yeah, I mean, and I tell you what, I picked Roper up every day after school, and he was a willing and eager. Okay, had his Weebelo shirt, and he put that Weebelo shirt on. I had drink, a little snack there in the back of the truck, and we drove. And he walked up to every. I'm there because Weebelo, you're like 10 or 11. You're not. I mean, you're still in elementary school, and he walked up to every house, and he was the high salesman for the district. Okay, so we're talking like $9,000 worth of popcorn. That kiddo
Okay.
in a course of like 6 weeks. Okay, and
Yep.
he did it, and that filled. I'll tell you what, that filled his confidence fuel tank. Like he did that. He did
And it was
that,
hard, and it
and
required
it
some
was
discipline and self-regulation and discomfort. And right. But those are the sort of
yeah,
lessons you and Stan are trying to drive home.
yeah, and I mean I was out of rehab at that time. I was
Yeah.
healthier. I was healthier, but I mean, he stuck with it. He
Yeah.
stuck with it, and same way with Hunter with the bull riding. Like I can't ride that bull for him. I mean, that's his deal. Like, but I gave it. We set him up for the opportunities,
Well, so
and
that's the piece, is the support piece, right? Because, and I think you and I have chatted about this before. We've used this language in episodes, but when you talk about anti-fragility on like a systemic or like ecosystemic environmental level, you get into basically like ratios of challenge and support. And so really high challenge, really low support, that's unrelenting,
mm,
right? It's
mm,
oppressive. Um, High challenge with high support, that's facilitative. And on a systemic level, that's anti-fragile, right? Like push, it's hard. You got to kind of rise. I like what you said earlier, to be different. You got to grow into something different, right? Those sorts of things. Um, I'm curious about the support side, because it's not just throwing them into the water and saying, "Hey, I hope you can tread," right? Or "I hope I'd swim." It sounds like there's some support structures along the way. And I think it goes back to your comment about doing things different. So how did you and Stan, or how do you currently kind of navigate that, let's say, more positive side of things, if you will?
yeah, and my boys now, they're not boys. I mean, they're 27 and 30. you know. And I mean, we're there for them. We love them, but I mean, I got to trust that what they have is what they need, and if they need something, they know they can ask, and there's no judgment. I mean, I probably share all my flubs. I do share all my flub ups with them. I mean, current flub ups with them. I mean, I keep it really real with them. Like, y'all can't do anything I haven't already done. Like there's I mean, I'm
Some of it's
cheering for them.
modeling in ways that maybe weren't modeled for you.
Oh yeah, I model what a great coach looks like. How
Mm,
how someone who coaches themselves,
mm,
like they don't see me quit. They see me rally. They see me getting outside my comfort zone. They see me do things that I have no idea how to do it, but I go ask for help. I mean, I'm really transparent with them of what I'm doing. Roper's a real creative side, and I'm sharing with him things that I put out into the world,
yeah.
and and like, man, I don't know if folks will like it, but I like it, and that's what counts. I mean, I'm real transparent and share with them,
You
and
nudge
with the
skills
support.
and habits, some of those other things you do. You mentioned mindfulness, gratitude. the messages and sort of self-talk you surround yourself with, or, the story you tell yourself? Have you been intentional about trying to share some of those things with them?
Yeah, I mean, and I share it by telling them what I'm doing. I
Sure.
don't tell them. I don't tell them, hey, show me that gratitude journal. I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
show them.
Right.
I'm like,
Right.
here's what I'm doing. Here's where I'm going. This is what I'm working on. This is the meditation app I use.
Yeah.
I'm pretty, I guess I'm not real hands on, like telling them what to do.
Yeah.
But I'm
There's
showing them.
autonomy
I'm,
there. Yeah.
I'm I'm more of a modeler
Yeah.
than a telling them what to do. Because I mean I do a lot of coaching and a lot of coaching of younger athletes
Yep.
and and a lot of the parents are like, hey, I tell them this and I show them this and it ain't working. And then I can show them and I can tell them and I can get in, I can talk to them and they're doing it. And my boys are like that too. They but I do feel I know I'm a good model for them, but I don't tell them what to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense. It does make me think. You once told me about, and I've mentioned this in multiple other settings before, but you told me about a set of clients that you worked with, and I believe the young lady went on and I believe won nationals. But in this, the reason I bring up this particular pair is this was a daughter and father, and they
Yeah.
really worked with
Yeah.
you and trained with you together. And I wanted to just bring us back to it because we're kind of talking about parenting here a little bit. And I wondered if you would just sort of recap their experience with each other and through you, and kind of if you gleaned anything from witnessing that that might help a parent listening kind of navigate these sort of things. Listen, if somebody's listening to this show at this point, it's because they're interested in science and flourishing and well-being and resilience and performance and those sorts of things. And so they're probably thinking about, like, how do I do this more organically with my kids? What'd you learn from that experience, and tell the audience a little bit about it? Because I think it's a really cool story.
Wow. Well, I appreciate you remembering that. And super cool family.
Yeah.
Super cool family. And the dad reached out and he and his daughter he had a daughter that great athlete and he wanted to work with me and he wanted me to work with the daughter and I well we can do it together. I'm like, parents are free, like when you work with me and you bring your kiddo or your kids. I mean, you want to sit on the calls. I mean, parents are free because teamwork makes the dream work. And he's like, nope, nope, I want my own session. He's like,
Yeah.
I compete and I want my own session. I'm like, okay, so you want me to meet with you and then you want me to meet with your daughter? And he's like, yep. And I'm like, feel you like both? And he's like, yep, I will both. I'm like, okay, okay. And so it was amazing. And we worked through the dad stuff, competing, and pretty much did the same, not exactly, it's all customized, but we hit on the same things like, confidence, how to do confidence and focus and how to zoom out and get a different perspective and how to set up routines and set up your daily success checklist and visualization and imagery and self-talk and the controllables and getting off the emotional roller coaster. I mean, the whole nine yards. And I'm doing that with dad and daughter. And they're supporting each other. Like, and then
In
they're
between.
chit-chatting with
Right.
each other. Yeah,
Right.
when they go to the arena to practice, to train, I mean, then they're like, hey, we're gonna work on one goal. Hey, we're gonna lock in and focus. We're gonna keep the culture out here. We're gonna keep it positive and productive. And hey, we're not gonna focus on the we're gonna reset our scoreboard 0-0. We're not packing our results with us, and helping each other, coaching each other up, being their own
Yeah.
best coach, and then helping each other. And then his daughter goes on and just wins a couple national titles, a reserve championship title. And the dad, I mean, at this point, I mean, they had worked with me, that they had great tools. And at this point, I mean, the dad is helping her and keeping her locked in and focused and saying the
Yeah.
right things, the
Yeah.
correct things, not derailing her. Like, well, don't screw this up, or just catch, or don't knock this over. I
Yeah.
mean, he has it together up here for himself, and he's helping her to just excel and be her optimal best. And it was awesome. And I really attribute that um to that dad. I mean, and I get to see him from time to time. They're a great family, and he really helped her. And the thing is, too, she during nationals, coach, she was rehabilitating from a back injury. I mean, she was braced up. I mean, she's doing these things, and
Mm,
she's not 100%, but she's given 100% of what she's got, and she's
mm.
got her dad helping her stay on track. And it was just so cool to see it, and what she did that year. I mean, I'm not saying that no one else has ever done it, but it was phenomenal, her performance. And
It's
it
it's
was
a
that was
really
awesome.
Yeah, it's a really great anecdote. It's a great story. I appreciate you rehashing it and sharing it with us. And it's funny, we were talking about it just earlier today. I was in a meeting with a therapist, just chatting about not my therapist, a therapist, chatting about kind of youth sports culture, which of course I've existed in for a long time. You have as well, and how toxic that can get pretty quickly. And it's probably fair to say I've contributed to that in the past also. And a lot of the time comes down to different messages, right? So a coach could give a message that's very different than a parent's message, that's very different than an athlete's internal message, right? And I think what your story describes is kind of getting a lot of those in sync, not in a way that's like dogmatic, but in a way that creates like a real virtuous cycle and helps kind of all parties continue to kind of grow and create the win-wins that ideally they're all there for in the first place. But unfortunately, often that's not how it plays out. It plays out very differently. So it's a good example, I think, to start to wrap on.
Yeah, I mean, that family has a great, I mean, culture, environment,
Mm,
values, behaviors, how they talk to each other. I
yeah,
mean, really solid and productive. Just the whole culture of that family,
yeah,
is
yeah,
huge,
yeah.
huge.
It's
And
cool.
and what's a win? Effort's a win, getting better's a win, rallying back's a win, growing through a mistake's a win. Like what do you value? Like you said, like
Celebrate the
the
right
intrinsic.
things. Yeah,
Yeah, and focus on the intrinsic. Yeah,
yeah.
you got
That's
it.
great.
Oh,
It's great. It's awesome. Well, listen, I want to start to kind of wrap here. I do have one more question for you, but before we do that, tell us a little bit about both of your books and where people can kind of find you, connect with you, interact with you more.
wow. Okay. Well, thanks. Thanks, coach. Yeah. Okay. Well, my website is DoneneTaylor.com. And you can find all things right there, social media, all the things right there. My two books, Heart of a Champion and Master the Art of Winning, they're both on Amazon. And
Great.
Heart of a Champion is my story, of my story of from a little girl to winning the world. And then Master the Art of Winning is a compilation of, like like we talked today, like the drills that I did. How did I do that? And I share with the drills and the performance journaling in Master the Art of Winning. So they go together. You don't need them
Yeah.
both, but the storybook is Heart of a Champion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Heart of a Champion's a great read. Recommend it to everybody. I really enjoyed it. Um, Master the Art of Winning, awesome resource as well. Like you said, both very different, but both I think really useful and powerful in their own ways. So we'll put them in the show notes so everybody can check them out. Donine, really appreciate you putting in the time today. I know you're busy, and we really appreciate it. This was a lot of fun, and you lent, I think, lots and lots and lots of valuable insights. So I'm sure our audience is appreciative as well.
Wow. Well, I always love seeing you, Doc. You've made my life just so much better and richer and fuller and fun. Just all the things. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you back. Thanks for taking the time. Thanks so much for listening to Flourish FM. We hope you enjoyed the content. Please be sure to leave us a 5-star review and hit that subscribe button wherever you listen to your podcast and on all major social media platforms.
And if you visit our website, flourishfmpodcast.com, you can sign up to our newsletter. We send out a weekly newsletter. First newsletter of every month, we share a long form blog, and every newsletter, every week, we share highlights from our previous episodes. Please hit subscribe on our website.